All right, Dylan, you can take a break, have a drink, take a nap, catch up some work, just relax.
It's okay, Dill. Go grab your new OLED Switch, grab your Metroid Dread, chill out for a bit.
Because me and Ciaran will talk about some anime. Hello, welcome to What Do You Want to Watch? Talking about some anime. I'm your host, Ashley Obley. Joining me today, Ciaran Marchant.
Hello. How are you? I'm glad we are. I'm glad it's just us because I feel like we have to rush through anime talk whenever we've talked about anime where Dylan's here because he's just kind of drifts off into his own little world or just.
And then we feel bad that he's drifting off in his little world when he could be doing something more useful. So I figured it'd be a good idea. Like occasionally, maybe we talk about some anime here. Do you know actually when the last time we talked about anime?
It'd either be the start of the year or like the end of last year.
It is like start of February.
yeah, I thought so because I think that was leading into. That would have been just leading into that new. That would have been leading into just like kind of the start of the. I guess they call it the winter anime season. That is. That does line up with what I remember talking about last time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's just jump straight into it. Ciaran, what have you been watching?
What have I been watching? Alright, let's go through stuff I watched last season, because for those listening and watching, the new season has just begun. Fall has just begun in the anime world, so a whole bunch of new shows and returning shows have come back, so we'll get into those a bit later from me. But starting off, probably my number one show of last season of the summer period was Tokyo Revengers. Did you watch Tokyo Revengers at all?
I've watched barely any anime.
Oh my god. Disappointing. No, Tokyo Revengers is definitely my number one anime of the season. It was absolutely fantastic. So anybody who doesn't know, Tokyo Revengers is about a kid or a man who gets sent back in time to his teenage years after he gets pushed off a train station platform into a train and finds himself kind of needing to change the events of his kind of younger high school life or middle school self, I think it is in Japan, where he gets involved with a hooligan gang or the Tokyo Manji gang and kind of the level of things he has to go through to get it. And of course, it's quite refreshing to have an anime or any form of media that is a main character is willing to make changes to the past, and there's nobody being like, "Hey, you need to worry about changing anything." He's free to change anything and make changes, and it's interesting to see. I think the midway point of the season, it feels like he's kind of getting somewhere, and then has a very sudden and abrupt kind of reset of what's going on and re-push back into it. So I think it has probably my favourite anime opening of 2021. Unless something kind of comes in the next couple months and steals that away, I think definitely will be. But it is a great... I would still say it is still a shonen anime in so many ways. And like, even the fight scenes or the fight animations of this is really well done and really well planned. So definitely my number one. I did jump back on the anime. That time I got reincarnated as a slime. Slime is an anime that I think has middling promise at the end of season one. I think people liked it. It was a very good isekai. It had a fair amount of kind of good building to the world and differences compared to your normal traditional isekais that everybody's seen 1,000 of now. But this season, I jumped back in, and this season it kind of hits new heights of just really good storytelling. Its holy fuck moments kind of skyrocket at several positions. It has a lot of intrigue and mystery and kind of continues to build on that world building and build on the characters. I think the way that all the characters evolve and kind of grow forward together is really well done. And it's interesting how well the main character, who, yes, was reincarnated as slime, but you don't have to worry, they do spend a lot of time in a more human form throughout it. So slime was very good. Back to probably newer stuff from last season. Sarai, Gansuku, Spirit Chronicles, another isekai, because isekais are all the craze right now in anime, really. About a boy who dies on a bus trip to school, and finds himself put into the body of a child. This one's interesting because it is, instead of just putting him directly into the world, he gets kind of fused with another character. So there's like two lots of character memories going on for it, and yeah, it's a very stock standard isekai. There was nothing special about it. Your traditional, each episode was almost like, okay, what female character is going to fall in love with the main character next? I think the animation was pretty good, and the overall kind of story design is interesting. I think it has plenty of ways to go kind of in the future with apparently its mangaka does kind of escalate really well in the future arc, so that was really good. Battle game in 5 seconds it's an interesting one. It's very close to Darwin's Game, which I think was the start of this year or the end of last year. Darwin's Game came out, which was more of a battle royale style one. This one is a bunch of players. At first, it gets introduced as a bunch of players get kind of written off as dead, in the world, and get taken, and each of them gets given a power to see. The interesting point about this one is the main character's power is, his power is whatever his opponent thinks his power is, and so it comes to not only some kind of interesting platforms in terms of like kind of how he uses that, but what the actual meaning behind the statement of his power actually is, and how that can be interpreted for himself to be used in different ways. But it was still, I think I fell off the bandwagon. I've got a couple episodes to catch up on it. It was solid, but at the same time, there was nothing amazingly special about it. It was kind of that mid-tier anime. Now, the important question, Ashley Hobley. Did you at least keep up with My Hero Academia this season?
Yes, I did. I've watched this season.
Okay. I have... I caught up with it yesterday, kind of between the last 2 days. I think the peak for me in the peak of this anime overall of My Hero this season really was kind of, and I don't know if it's, I can't remember if I checked if this is, I don't think it's the full season. I just think it's the end of the first course of it, and I think there's a second course to come. But I think having this be a little bit more of a slower paced, either half to a season or season itself, there was still a lot going on. There's still a lot more pushing forward for Deku Bakugo, especially, and Todoroki kind of going and forming going under the number one hero endeavor. I think for many people that led to some really good story arcs. It is building really well to the up and coming kind of main Liberation Army plotline. I think I fell off, like the high for me was like kind of it dove more into Endeavor's storyline. It dove more towards his family, and I think it got really good then. And then all of a sudden, it stops following Deku and the students around. All of a sudden, and starts going on to the villain arc, where it follows the members of the League of Villains a lot more closely. Which at first I wasn't so much kind of bought into, but by the end of that arc, it really picks up the pace. It goes to some especially dark places. Even with Shigaraki, like the leader of the League of Villains, like kind of you see his origin story, and you see just how dark they're willing to go with it, as well as the kind of the actual storytelling overall. So I thought it was a very solid season. Probably isn't my favorite season. I think hopefully this is just the first course, and there is a second course to come. But
no, I think that's the full season.
That is the full season. All right, and My Hero is really weird on that, where they like kind of.
It was 25 episodes long, so I mean,
was it really? It did not even feel that long. Like, I guess it started really well with Class 1A versus 1B.
Which is like
arc, which went for a decent amount of time.
Yeah, like 8 episodes or something like that.
dipped into Deku's arc of Deku kind of learning more about One for All and kind of the previous owners of One for All. Yeah, no, I think for anybody who is, for whatever reason, I think either holding out on My Hero, definitely still jump in. I think it's a great shonen. At the same time, it's definitely something to keep an eye on look out. I will say, kind of overall, this season of anime was kind of lacking, and I think this middle part overall has been. Like, I didn't think I found myself watching as much or as all. Like, I guess because we've been so long, so of course we could go back and talk about Attack on Titan and the position that's left itself in. One shout out for me is definitely the end of Black Clover was this year. And Black Clover is probably one of my favorite animes now of all time, and it ended really well. They are taking a break just so they could let the manga go forward. There is a movie coming out, but no, that is 180 episodes as a complete set. So if anybody now is wanting to, yes, you will of course always hear the classic, the main character Asta's voice, especially in the Japanese audio, is kind of very shouty for the first probably 20 episodes, but it gets really good. And his voice acting calms down quite a bit by the end of it. I'm trying to see what else I watched last season before I go on to it. Is there anything at all other that you watched?
So, the only other anime that I watched was I just caught up on Remain, which is the water polo.
Oh, really? Okay.
Anime.
All right.
Yes. So it's an interesting starting point where it's obviously a group of kids in their high school starting a water polo team, but the main protagonist was a star player in middle school, but he got into a car accident and lost his memory for the last 3 years. So he doesn't remember how he became a really good water polo player and all that history. So yeah, he kind of finds himself getting back into water polo, even though he's never played it in his memory before. And then, even though he was the best best middle school water polo player in the country, he has to pretty much start from scratch again. It definitely feels like, he started off as Kageyama, and then he had a brain injury, and now he's Sonata. So it's he's going to go get that childish element because he thinks he's 3 years younger than he actually is, and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really interesting arc that they followed through this first year, and then I would definitely recommend it, especially if you're a big fan of sports anime like I am. So, yeah,
definitely.
Anything else?
Well, I'll dive into what I've literally just started watching this week. As the fall season kicks off. First one that caught my eye was a show called Platinum End, which is an incredibly dark anime based on the first episode so far. The show starts off with the main character trying to commit suicide. He tries to step off a high-rise building, but gets caught and saved by an angel, and the angel kind of is wanting to bring him hope. And to give him a reason to be happy. This Platinum End is the dark. It goes to some dark levels of kind of intrigue and reasons why he was at this point in his life. But at the same time, there is this interesting nature about the angel that isn't the full-on goody two-shoes kind of angel that many people would come to expect with. Kind of, she grants the main character kind of two abilities. One is being able to fly with angel wings, and the other one is an arrow that when it hits somebody, it makes them fall in love with him. And the angel immediately uses this to try and convince the main character to stop manipulating people, to kind of either to steal things or to get happiness by any ways necessary without many morals to them. So, it is an interesting one overall. It kind of caught me out of the blue. It wasn't something I was expecting to look into, but definitely something that I am interested by it, and I'm excited to see where it goes as it pushes forward. Another one on Crunchyroll is The World's Finest Assassin gets reincarnated in another world. Which, goddamn English translations of Japanese titles generally suck real bad. But, no, this one's actually, first episode was a typical setup for an isekai. And had, but in a more interesting take that, for once, in the main character originally was a kind of, in the twilight years of his life, cold-hearted killer that doesn't seem to have any of those moral ambiguities or problems to him that a lot of these characters generally do, where they generally have a problem killing, or they generally have some kind of internal flaw, or they have to learn all the things, where this main character seems to be already set up and already in place with that. And then to continue on the freaking string of isekais and we're on at the moment in the anime world, probably the greatest isekai, in my opinion, Mushoku Tensei gets its second course, which can be found on Funimation. Its first course was released, I believe it was 12 episodes or 11 episodes at the start of this year. Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation. It is the most interesting in terms of the character is actually put into the body of a baby and actually is going through his life, and the anime is quite content at going at its own pace, skipping time periods when it needs to. I think one of the most interesting things about the show is it doesn't do OP, like it doesn't have an OP. Instead of, it generally has the same song, but it'll play through either traveling montages or montages of scenery where the characters are currently, and uses it as more of a storytelling device than anything, which I think is really interesting and really fantastic. I think the characters within it are far more layered and interesting than most you would get, and kind of the world around it seems to be well built up. Of course, your main character in all of these isekais is overpowered and quite strong, but I think it's done in a way that is balanced out by the character's own kind of personality traits and his own problems. So that's what I'm on at the moment. We are still kind of very early in terms of the fall season, so it'll definitely be something that will be, as we go into opening weeks, more stuff will jump out. Of course, Demon Slayer's next season does begin. Do remember though that the first I think it's six or seven episodes is just the anime adaptation of the recent very successful Demon Slayer Mugen Train movie. So for those who have already seen that or aren't really wanting to rejoin that, it'll be a little while before we actually get some.
How do you feel about them revisiting Mugen Train?
It'll be interesting to see if they add content or do anything, or how they change it. I really liked the idea of the movie being canon and the movie being directly within the story of the Demon Slayer series, instead of, when we have, for instance, the plethora of Naruto movies that none of them have any kind of canonical relevance or significance. Same with the My Hero ones that are being done that are, have different sections in that just don't seem to have any kind of fit-in locations where into the main story. And I was really excited about that. I'm a little disappointed that they're putting it into the first opening episodes of it, because I think I liked the idea of them just starting the next season off the end of where Mugen Train lets off, to not only reward people for going out and watching their movie, but at the same time encouraging people to continue to include that in their watch cycle of it. Like, I think Funimation already has Mugen Train, I think, or it's going to have Mugen Train soon.
I think it's going to be pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, like it'll be everywhere, so it's not like that movie is not going to be accessible to people. It'll be interesting if they decide to make changes throughout it, or they kind of take away some of maybe where the movie was lacking in sections. That'd be really good. But at the same time, yeah, I'm just it's a bit meh from in an overall standpoint, but I'm still excited either way for when it starts fully kind of kicking into gear and coming out. I am looking forward to watching the entire kind of that last third of the movie is enough to rewatch it almost.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be interesting to see how they interpret it differently, or whether it's just they've chopped it up and split it over 7 weeks so they can just reuse it again. No, but I have a little bit more faith that they'll actually do something. But yeah, it doesn't make me want to go watching it week to week. I think I'll just wait till
it's all out.
All those episodes are out. Watch it in a big bunch, and then kind of go from there. I watched the a new anime, Blue Period, that just released on Netflix and is going to be released weekly on Netflix, which is about a student who comes. It's like an art anime.
Okay.
It's a student who starts to develop an interest in art and starts to sets a new goal of getting into a very prestigious, a very hard to get into art school. So yeah, I thought it was quite interesting, and obviously, playing around with art styles and that kind of thing. Not just your basic looking at anime and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would check that one out. And yeah, obviously it being on Netflix is kind of super freely available to most people.
And I think for some reason I hadn't even thought to open up my Netflix to remind me. Shaman King it's a little bit late here because it took a while for us to get it on our Netflix. I think it was out earlier in the year for Japan. But the remake or remaster or I don't know. It's a reboot, kind of almost fully way of Shaman King is out on Netflix. It's fantastic. It's really fucking good. I think for many people, maybe similar age to me, I don't know if you might have missed it when it originally came out, but Shaman King was definitely something that I was really excited for when I was a child, and it kind of just abruptly stopped and they never really completed or finished out where the mangaka were. So it's really nice for them to start going back to it and kind of bringing that up. So, Shaman King on Netflix. I will say as a whole, Netflix has so much good anime. Like, it's kind of crazy how much anime is on Netflix currently, and how open and available it is at the moment. So for people who may be tuning in, who don't normally watch anime, don't feel like if you ever want to start watching anime, don't feel like you need to sub to Crunchyroll or you need to jump on Funimation, or we'll talk about that situation in a bit. But if you've got Netflix, you have a great platform to dive in and jump in and start watching some anime, whether that be dubbed content or the superior subbed content.
All right. What else are you looking forward to in this season?
You know what? I'm fairly blank on this season, not going to lie.
I mean, the one that stands out to me that's going to be most interesting is they've got that new Blade Runner series that's about to launch. I don't know exactly who that's from, but it is exclusive to Crunchyroll. Blade Runner Black Lotus, which will fit in somewhere within the 2044 canon. Looks very pretty. So that's one I'm looking out for.
There is two that I missed, and I think the second part of 86 starts this one, and I haven't started 86 yet, but I've only heard great things about it. It's about secrets, I believe, mech pilots and kind of their role in the society, so something I will be going back to at some point. I always find it really... this is probably going to be... I always find it, generally either... go through. I haven't had a chance to normally go through and watch either the Anime Man on YouTube or Giguk does normally a bit later when these seasons open up. They do seasonal reviews where they go through, and I think he does, especially Joey the Anime Man, does a fantastic job of kind of explaining and presenting what each anime is going to be, because I think from a Western point of view it's sometimes kind of hard, even when I'm looking on my anime list. It's not kind of 100% obvious or kind of apparent sometimes for the descriptions what animes are going to be about and where they're going to sit in terms of it. I think as a whole this year's been a little bit weak on anime. There's been some really good stuff, but I think the last 2 years have been so goddamn good for anime in general that I'm looking forward to what comes out now.
All right. Well, you touched on it just before, but like a big thing that's potentially going to happen in the Western world of anime is obviously Funimation and Sony bought Crunchyroll earlier this year for I think $1.15 billion or something like that. Some ridiculous amount of money. Of course, there was talks that they're planning to combine the two services. Obviously, we've barely heard anything since. Obviously, they've got to figure out what name they're going to stick with, what of the other company they're going to keep, and like what other elements. Because obviously, they're quite different. Crunchyroll very much sub heavy. I don't think there's very much dubbed content.
There's
on there.
been more as of late, but they kind of do. They do dub content in a really weird way on Crunchyroll, where it's not, say, on Netflix or even on Netflix uses one. All you do is you go into this language settings for whatever you're watching and just pick Japanese and English subs, and it'll instantly swap over. Crunchyroll has like a separate listing for all of the languages. That's kind of annoying.
But yeah, how do you feel about the merger? Is it going to happen soon?
I think it's interesting. We've already had, up until recently, Funimation was kind of under the Anime Lab banner here in Australia, but recently kind of Funimation had taken over that and then kind of actually arrived as Funimation here in Australia. I actually think it will go ahead as Funimation. I think Crunchyroll has a good knowing IP, but at the same time, I think just by them becoming Funimation in Australia already over Anime Lab, I think that is a sign of things to come. I don't think it's going to be a quick thing, though. I still think we've got another year or two of Crunchyroll, most likely. Just because of the goodwill behind that name and kind of what it is. I think overall this is... Look, there is a lot of pros and cons, and I think it's all based on a lot of questions that we don't have the answers to right now. On one hand, it means you only have to subscribe to one thing for your anime. Like, I have Crunchyroll and Anime Labs, or Funimation subs going, so it's like, if I only have one sub for all this anime, awesome. But it's like, okay, will this one platform have all the anime that was going on both of them? I really hope so. I hope, going onto one platform doesn't mean we're going to lose out on some of the animes that were potentially there. Again, Crunchyroll has done a fantastic job as of late making its own original animes. We had Tower of God, God of High School already. I think they've got one at the moment about a pirate queen. I think it's Fifi the pirate queen. If I describe
God of Pirates.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. I was like, I think I know. Fina, that's it. Fina, Pirate Princess. There we go. Is a current anime Netflix Crunchyroll original that is being brought out. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes, if we're going to start getting Funimation originals or whatever name they, Crunchy Fun, that'll be their name. They'll just do an amalgamation of the two. Or Fun Crunchyrolls. But no, I think
or they'll both live, like you can sign into either one, and it'll just give you the entire library. It's like a different skin.
That'd be interesting, but also at the same time, from a technology point of view, that seems like a pain in the ass.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I think obviously for most, assuming we get all the same content, all combined, I mean, it's a win for consumers to a certain degree, because it's like one place for everything, which could also potentially help with piracy. It's like, yeah, I don't need to get 2 subscriptions to, get everything. I only need to pay for one, so I'm more likely to pay for just one instead of not paying for 2, I guess. Which I suspect a certain amount of people do. And it's not like they've got a complete monopoly. Like you said, Netflix is obviously doing a fair amount of anime content, so it's... I suspect that's why they ruled that it wasn't a monopoly and that the 2 companies could come under the same umbrella. So yeah, it'll be interesting to at least see how that goes moving forward, because, obviously there's all these people who actually work for these companies as well who are, can't all stick around and that kind of stuff.
And especially Crunchyroll had, Crunchyroll does some form of magazine or newsletter. There's a whole manga side to Crunchyroll that you can get involved with.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. They've obviously got that community element to it.
Yes.
From it being an old, dubbed from its history of,
yeah, definitely.
being an independent and that kind of stuff, so.
And even, in terms of, they do the Crunchyroll Awards every year, which are kind of, I guess for many people seen as maybe... Not, I wouldn't say the main awards, because the last couple of years they have been a bit of a joke with the... with kind of how Crunchyroll skewed some of the awards were and some of the voting was, but... it's an interesting position for anime watchers, especially here in Australia, to come. Hopefully is a positive overall, and we get more anime for less money. That'd be really nice. We will wait to see how it goes. If it takes 20 years for your TVs and consoles to switch over their apps on their consoles to whatever app you need now. It's an interesting period ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on, obviously we've been getting a lot of footage, looks at Netflix's Cowboy Bebop series that's in the works. Ciaran, how are you feeling about the live action adaptation?
I want it to be good. I want it to be good. It should be good. Look, all the cast shot looks really good. All of the general kind of whatever we've actually seen, including the trailer, I think looked overall pretty good. There's still part of me that is holding back because, as a whole, real life anime adaptations fucking suck, and they are terrible to watch. I'm hoping one bad thing or bad luck thing about it is they released the soundtrack or their version of the opening recently, and it's man, I'm sorry, but Cowboy Bebop might have the most iconic and kind of great opening songs in kind of the history of anime, and they couldn't match that unless they didn't just use the original. So they've tried. Hopefully, have you watched Cowboy Bebop?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I was gonna say
I've been rewatching it slowly.
Okay. Good. Yeah. No. It is definitely something I would recommend people to go out and watch if they haven't already before this live action comes out. But yeah, I'm optimistic, but equally pessimistic for my own benefit.
Yeah, I'm definitely optimistic. Obviously, John Cho looks really cool and that kind of stuff, and they got a cool, cute looking corgi. So I mean, they're 2 for 2 there. And it looks like obviously they care about the initial material and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's hard to say. It's interesting, obviously, because we do know that Netflix is currently working on a One Piece animated live action adaptation as well. So
that one could be bad. That one.
It's there's a couple. It's we know that obviously anime stuff, there's a ton of material there, so it shouldn't be surprising that Hollywood is potentially looking at cashing in on some of these properties.
Well, so One Piece is such an interesting, especially for me, because I've never been able to watch One Piece. My love of anime and my kind of connection with anime probably already was 300 episodes too late for One Piece. I remember seeing One Piece as a kid and being cool. It's interesting, it's different. But every now and then I start watching a couple episodes, and then also at the same time I see that the episode list is up to 1,208 episodes. I'm I can't do that. That's not a thing I'm ever going to get caught up with.
Yeah, that's a rough one to go. Yeah, maybe I should start that one. But yeah. All right. Anything else you want to discuss before we finish up?
Just super minor one that I saw today that I thought was interesting, so I thought I'd bring it up. It was announced that there is new, I guess, short stories for Death Note are being brought out in the coming year. These are nothing to do with they're nothing to do with Akira or anything from Kira from Death Note or the actual kind of main Death Note storyline. This is all apparently about characters and about things that happened around that story and that are in conjunction with it because of the events of the original story. So I think it's really good. Death Note falls off a fucking pier in terms of quality really badly. Like, actually, a pier's really small. Like a cliff, but like a really big cliff. It kind of gets to a point and then kind of realizes that it didn't want to stop just yet, and then it's kind of weird. But that is the only extra story I wanted to add.
All right. Let us know what anime you want us to talk about in the future by going to explosionnetwork.com/Twitter or jump to Discord at explosion.com/Discord. If you want to help us out here at What Do You Want to Watch, if you want more talking about some anime, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or on Podchaser or tell people about the show. And if you like this episode and thought it was worth the $1, head on over to our Ko-fi page at explosionnetwork.com/support. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time, keep watching stuff, I guess.